This is January to bring a timely update. This is the eve of the anniversary of a magical ceremony or ritual, a grand ritual that was done by a rocket scientist named Jack Parsons, called the Babalon working. Why is this relevant to us now at this time? Well, this particular working, which is just another word for ceremony or ritual or operation, is an end times working. It is to coincide with the end times, the bringing forth of the whore of Babylon, or the goddess of Babylon, according to the sorcerers who see her in an arguably positive light, because the deeper that they get into what they do, the more they realize that they've been told some things that aren't exactly true, and toward the end they even take a vow, which is basically an admission that they will accept whatever happens to them as a communication between them and their God, and that includes going crazy. So when lunacy began to creep up on this once brilliant scientist, in his own letters he even smoothed it over as one of the experiences that he was going through as a great magician, and that this was just another step on a level of ascension as a great adept sorcerer, wizard. But in 1946, on January 18th, Parsons devised an operation to obtain the assistance of an elemental mate. Using the Enochian magic tablet of air, the focus of this sex magic was to give substance to the elemental summons. He did this working twice daily for 11 days. Now, what this meant was he wanted to, out of thin air, materialize a female ritual assistant, okay, in layman's terms. And now, again, the relevance of this for now, let me zero in on that for you. We've been talking about the fallen angel tech of the book of Jasher. We've been talking about how the fallen angels gave us technology, how we shouldn't be so quick to celebrate civilization, which was first founded by the Cometians, the Sumerians, those particular cultures and civilizations that brothers and sisters really are encouraged to revere. Yes, we did indeed create civilization, but now we begin to look at civilization and technology and the tools that we use in technology and its relationship to magic as really a Trojan horse from the fallen. So do we really celebrate that? And I'm going to do a whole video on that, so we're not going to get off into that dynamic right now. But we've been looking at these things, and it all relates, because right now, as you hear so much talk about the CERN super collider and different portals opening up, this is one of the most important rituals, quote unquote, in witchcraft, to opening up portals. And it's no coincidence that today we are going into Aquarius, which of course Parsons would have known, and it's all about an Aquarian age deception when we're looking at what these quote unquote occult masters were trying to achieve. They were trying to achieve what they called an Aquarian age of man, or an enlightening of man, mankind transforming into his higher self. Put more simply, man being a god, the ancient Luciferian lie. So again, we understand that the lie in the trick bag oftentimes is that in telling us about these ancient civilizations, they don't frame the fact that the gods, or who they called the gods, were really deceiving spirits. So now we fast forward to this time, the information age, which they're dubbing a new Aquarian age. Okay. Now more than ever, we're going through some tumultuous times in these perilous times that some will relate to tribulation. And, a lot of people are going through different things. We remember the sick, we remember the shut-in, we remember the homeless and the hungry. But what of the abducted or the ritually abused? I want you all to consider them in thought, prayer, and action. And pray for all who are suffering this particular torment and oppression, because they are all but forgotten by the body. But as some of you have prayed for her before, I ask you again to pray for Kim, our sister in the UK, who has been taken and overtaken by a variety of means, all because of this end times ritual that is now in effect even at this moment. Remember that there's always the preparation, there's the difference in time zones. You remember to pray around the clock at different times around the clock. But again, that's for those who are specific family members to the body that is the temple on this channel. To just passing by viewers, of course, you have no idea what we're talking about. But we're going to jump into this Jack Parsons thing, and it's quite a universal thing, because for me, when I first was made aware of Jack Parsons, it was through the Secret Space documentaries of Chris Everard. And I thought it was incredible that there was a renowned scientist who had admittedly dealt with the occult, but they spoke so sparingly about him in that documentary. I have been looking for some time to really find out more about him. So we're going to drop the mother load and put together some connections to let you understand some things about technology, some things about science and magic, and some things about trusting the industries of this world. Okay, whether it's the educational industry, because that's an industry. Okay, whether we're talking about selling books to schools or selling books to you from Truth Bookstore in Northland Mall in Southfield, right off 8 Mile. But all of these industries, there is an agenda, because at the top level of each industry there is a capstone. Every industry is shaped like a pyramid. It's the pyramid scheme mentality. It's the corporate blueprint, really, in reality. So Parsons, by the way, was not a formally trained scientist. He had a knack for rockets. So he and a pal of his had decided, as they were living in the area, had decided to go to the college in the area and find out some more things about rockets, as they, according to the background story, as they had done so much experimentation in their spare time, they had taken it to the limits, so now they wanted to go to the next level, so they had to go to, quote unquote, the authorities, or the experts. So there, while at the university, Parsons was paired with others, and they came up with the JPL. The JPL is the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, which was responsible for converting aeronautics in America from propeller-based, where all of the planes used to have a propeller on the front, to rocket-propelled planes, jet propulsion. And this was something that this man was a pioneer behind. Jack Parsons was a pioneer in that field. He took us from propeller to propulsion. Okay, JPL and NASA both can give him credit for having had a great impact on what they would end up contributing to aeronautics and then eventually the space program. Okay, now what's really interesting about Parsons, we'll go down through his credibility and different things you can research I'm just going to go down the page, was he had a close connection to Aleister Crowley. Now, in some researchers' works, that connection is downplayed. It's very obvious. What happened was Crowley was dissatisfied with the leadership there in Pasadena at his OTO branch. I understand it was the only one here, or it was the most public or successful one. And eventually, Crowley got to taking a liking for a new member, this man Jack Parsons. And of course, his status as a scientist made him climb up the ladder in the OTO, Ordo Templi Orientis, very, very quickly, which was Crowley's magic group. Crowley himself was behind that group. Excuse me, as the founder. Pardon me. And so, Jack Parsons, he shined among the other members, pun intended. And so Crowley decided that he would replace that bad leadership with Jack Parsons. So Jack Parsons became the leader and was given that position by Crowley. There are letters back and forth between Crowley and Parsons that can be found among the archives of the OTO themselves. But Crowley himself was not only in a position of superior to Parsons in this respect, but also Parsons had become Crowley's really most consistent supporter financially. At the time, old man Crowley was on his way out. As a matter of fact, he would die the same year as the great UFO craze surrounding the crash of the Roswell weather balloon. So the JPL lab, according to Dr. John Bluth, who was a historian for JPL, was born on October the 31st, 1939. What a coincidence. It was born on Halloween. It's going to get creepier, trust me. It was born of the California Institute of Technology at 4800 Oak Grove Drive. Okay. I even looked at the numerology in the address. 4800, you have 12 for the final hour, you have 8 for infinity and Saturn, the feminine representation of the adversary, then you have 4 for elemental magic, which is what your man JP was all about. Okay, and it was built on what used to be a vacant spot on a 165-acre complex. Okay, in Pasadena is where Parsons was from. I found it interesting. Que pasa is like what's up or what's happening, and I would deduce in Pasadena is like Diana happening, or the happening of Diana, or the working of Diana, which is what we're really talking about with the Babylon working, but we're going to continue. Parsons was born to a rich family and inherited his father's Victorian mansion in Pasadena eventually. There seemed to have been some lull or lapse in money at some period in this time, to where Parsons had to kind of hustle a little bit to make ends meet. But being as brilliant as he was, that wasn't a problem. But it is evident that he did come from money. Now, what is missing from the record is how did he learn what he knew about rockets? Was he just a little tinkering child who, took a knack to that? That's possible, but let's continue. Okay, Jack Parsons was a chemist, born on the 2nd of October, In 1914, in Los Angeles, California, an expert in explosions and rockets, he joined the OTO, the Ordo Templo Orientis, Crowley's group, in 1939. The Army chose JPL, which was the lab where they came up with the rockets that would eventually fuel NASA, the space program. So this man is the foundation of all of that. But let's continue. The Army chose JPL to join with because of their ability to claim that they could find a way across or around the Van Allen belt. And so because of those claims, the Army chose JPL over other scientists and groups and organizations. The military-industrial occult complex is off and running. Under Eisenhower, it was given the mandate to explore deep space. Parsons was behind such launchings as those of the Mariners, the Vikings, the Voyagers, the Pioneers, Galileo, to re-image the moon on Jupiter called Europa. Okay. NASA logo symbolism I find to be interesting. We're going to come back to that, but well, we can look at that. I do believe I got that queued up real fast. Because there's always something in the symbol, and when we're talking about people who are involved in mind control, symbol magic or sigil magic is a big part of that. Using a symbol to cast a spell on you. The foundation is usually to make you think two different things at one time. Your subconscious thinking one thing, your conscious thinking another. It splits the mind, and they're able to insert something there in between that space. By the time the mind closes back up, it doesn't realize that it has a chip or quote unquote a thought chip or an implanted thought or this idea implanted within it. And of course you're none the wiser, because it all takes place in the subconscious mind, which we are very ignorant of in general. But I thought this was interesting because now we're going to look at the NASA logo too, but just to show you an example, when I looked at this upside down, away from it, turn it upside down. Okay, but when I looked at it upside down, the way that the 2 is made there, it's like a Z. Now that stood out to me before I looked at it upside down, but once I looked at this and I saw all of this, looked like organized confusion. And whenever you see organized confusion on a symbol, on a logo, on an icon, you can look for some sort of optical illusion or hidden message, subliminal message herein. And I hadn't even looked in all of this, but the obvious jumped out at me. That was saying Oz. Okay? Without a doubt. Oz, 077. But, you know, and we understand the importance of 77 to the Crowleyites. But when I saw that Oz, it began to formulate that, you know, the whole space program was sort of an Oz, really more of a mind control thing. And the more we look at Jack Parsons, the more that will come to light, that it was about the occult. And when we get into the occult, you're going to get into mind control. Why? Because the deeper you get into the occult, you're going to eventually open up something, and spirits will come in, and those spirits will control your mind. Period. Those spirits will, when you open yourself up to them, they've been around a long time. They will control your mind. And even a brilliant rocket scientist, you know, people always say you ain't got to be a rocket scientist to know something. This man was a rocket scientist, and he couldn't outsmart them. Let's continue. They drove him out of his mind. And that was not the cause of his death, incidentally. but we'll get into that. But yes, we wanted to look at the straight up NASA logo real fast. Let's do that. Now, although Parsons took NASA to that other level, he's not the one who really kicked it off by getting the occult military complex going in the first place. It would have been Project Paperclip, where we brought in the Nazi scientists who had worked for Hitler, and Hitler had his scientists, unlike American scientists and other scientists in the West. Hitler had his scientists without any boundaries, let's say that. They had no regard for human life. They would do experiments with full connection to the occult involved in them. You know, they were not shy about their connection to the occult. People are starting to talk about that now, in the age that we're in now. But it was a very little known fact that Hitler was connected to the Thule Society, and that there was a branch of his service called the Black Flame, and they were overtly into the occult. But once those scientists came here, and of course the excuse was, and Project Paperclip is out there in public record, okay, this is not like high levels conspiracy theorist information right here. But once those Nazi scientists got rolling, they came up with NASA, and then eventually the atom bomb. So we need to look at that a little taste too, and then tie that back into Parsons and how he fits in. But I always thought that the logo was odd, but then what I thought I saw today, I thought I saw a couple of things differently. I thought I saw like a Ghostbuster slash through Earth, because we do realize that the aliens are nothing but beings who are in opposition to humanity. You can call them by a lot of other names. So, you know, like the no ghost sign, you know, I thought it was a similarity to the no Earth, the slash through Earth, the sideways ring of Saturn. I considered the play on that, even with the curvature here. But even more so, what kind of jumped out at me was it reminded me of a forked tongue, because it's the Luciferian lie. You know, this one's upside down, but it's the forked tongue, because it is the Luciferian lie that you shall be as gods. Remember, mankind has always equated outer space with his gods. And so going to outer space is a way of, you know, in the eyes of the powers that be, it is a way of equating yourself with God. For those who are not in the know, and for those who are in the know, they know what aliens really are. And they know that all it's about is conjuring and bringing here specific ones for your personal advancement and for the advancement of the great work, the agenda as a whole. And the great work, of course, is to create a new Atlantis. So that's why today figures prominently as January 18th. No, I know what the astrological calendars will say and what the astrologer will say in your weekly paper. But I'm telling you what I know. The energies begin because it's about, supposedly, the Earth moving from the field of influence of one planet to another. The field of influence is nothing but like, for instance, you know that there is a field of influence that the moon has on the Earth. So, you know, it's the same principle. Well, that's gravity. It's the same principle, that there's a field of influence that every planet has. And as you pass through that planet's field of influence, those energies affect the people. And that's the premise. And again, this is what they believe. So for them, it's a big day. This is the day that Parsons called up his elemental woman, his woman from out of nowhere, who appeared from out of nowhere. Okay, according to him, he kind of said that. Well, what had happened was, while he and his scribe were out, I believe he was in the Mojave Desert, he suddenly felt a peace and calm that was different than what he had felt during the 11 days he had been doing the working to bring forth this elemental woman, this woman from out of nowhere. So he had did this working twice daily for 11 days. A few days later he wrote, "The feeling of tension and unease continued for 4 days. Then, on January 18th at sunset, whilst the scribe and I were on the Mojave Desert, the feeling of tension suddenly stopped. I turned to him and said, 'It is done,' making mockery of words of Messiah, in absolute certainty that the operation was accomplished. I returned home and found a young woman answering the requirements waiting for me." He sent out requirements. It said that one of the things he required that she be red-haired and have green slantish eyes. So now that's his story. Now the way he met Cameron is retold a couple of different ways, even by her. But Marjorie Cameron is who we're referring to. There's even a book written about her life. They say it was the first one written about her life, called Wormwood Star. And I believe that would have been 2010. The Magical Life of Marjorie Cameron. Now this is the woman who showed up. Now consequently, she became a star. She ended up being a Hollywood star. Now this is where the story gets funky. Are you ready? Marjorie Cameron and Parsons then spent the next week or so in his bedroom getting busy in her mind and in his mind performing the sex magic rituals to bind her to him. Because you see, from other accounts, it wasn't that she just magically appeared. From other accounts, he met her at a party, and from still other accounts, she just slipped into the OTO and got close to him. Well, interestingly enough, she had a military background. Yeah, she didn't just come out of thin air. She had a background, and we're going to look into that too. But let's read on. And yes, she became famed for her art, and she appeared in a couple of movies. But she was a noted artist during the beatnik scene, during the beat scene. She was a very provocative, talked about, influential artist on that scene, who helped push the boundaries of that scene and make it as weird as it was. To be flat out, she was almost your archetypical artist of that time. Just being weird just to be weird type of stuff. Okay, but let's continue. He went on to describe her. He said, "She is describable as an air of fire type with bronze red hair, fiery and subtle, determined and obstinate, sincere and perverse, with extraordinary personality, talent, and intelligence." Talk about a man being a sucker for the strange. Now you have to remember again, what is the relevance of this today? The relevance of this today is that this very same working, which was to be done in parts, is not, the final part is now being done now. Okay? Alright? They began it back during this time. War and nuclear war was on the table prior to it, because you got to remember, these gods, they nothing nice. The one that Crowley had contacted, it was either Iwas or Lam, had said to him, aside from saying, I'm the snake that giveth man knowledge, he said, I'm the god of war. So of course you would inspire these great scientists to come up with something for war, right? Makes perfect sense to me. But now let's not forget now, things had already been established before Marjorie Cameron and Jack Parsons get on the scene. You already have the guys from the Manhattan Project. So let's look just a little bit at that, just to frame everything right. We're not going to say that Parsons is the sole reason for the military occult complex, and even put all of the blame of the Babylon working on him, because he was following as he was taught, right? Obviously. And his predecessors, his teachers, the pioneers of NASA, were men like Oppenheimer. So let's look at a little bit of that. And Oppenheimer says some very key things that obviously influenced Parsons to later construct and then conduct this Babylon working. Okay? And let's look at how it all connects again to nuclear war. Now, studies have been done that show that even when people of mild faith get together and they pray over a loved one's bed when they're sick, more often than not, for whatever reason, New Agers will say it's the good energy, the person get a little better. Okay? And in many cases, it's not uncommon to hear how they fully recover. Okay? Way more often than you hear of everybody got together, they sincerely prayed, and they didn't get nothing back. They got a no for their answer. That does happen. But in general, that show of strength, of unity, of human unity to get together and pray for something is acknowledged. So the same way that these devils and these cowards that be get together and they, for all of their wickedness, can get along. Can you imagine how wicked they must be one to another? But they can get along. And they can pray, quote unquote, together and make things happen because of that singularity of purpose in mind that we lack. Everyone having their own agenda. But let's look a little bit. So that's why it's relevant to you now. Okay? It's going on right now. And it'll be going on. He did this working from the 18th to the 27th, I believe, but we're going to run through that information. And, you need to know this. Like Mike said, you must know this. You need to know this. Because it's something that we could be doing as a body in an explosive way. Just all different times during the day. Now you know what to say. You see, you have not because you ask. Now sometimes you don't know what to ask. Okay, so we know that's one of their magic rituals, that is to unleash this horror of Babylon and all sorts of abominations and terrors, including nuclear terror or atomic terror, however you want to look at it. Okay, because it all connects. Parsons, the rocket scientist, and one of the founding fathers behind jet propulsion, rocket propulsion, NASA, the space program, and our nuclear program. And this is all hush-hush. When you read their official writings of him, you will find very little about his personal history, but he caused such a stir in Pasadena and different places. His neighbors had called in a report of a pregnant woman jumping through a ring of fire in his backyard in some kind of ritual. So things like that would come out. Former associates would come out. Associates of Marjorie's would come out as well and talk about Jack's pretty much well-guarded personal life. In Alamogordo, New Mexico, on July 16th, 1945, at 5:29:45 Mountain Wartime. They conducted the Trinity atomic bomb blast, the first atomic bomb. And Oppenheimer made a very curious quote or statement following at the press conference. And I wanted to just show you guys that as well. Now, keep in mind that among these scientists, there's already this occult thread. Okay, you already have Project Paperclip, you have Hitler's old team in full effect, and you have a government that has for a long time been operating with brotherhoods and secret societies who themselves believe in the occult as their puppeteers and as their masters. Well, now it had gotten into the scientific community and therefore spilled into the military community in a new way. So what you're going to hear is a scientist who is aware of the fact that they are using the power of the destructor, the destroyer, as opposed to using the power of the creator, the constructor, and to be constructive or creative. So you can't create an atomic bomb, but what they did was they harnessed an energy. They harnessed the most destructive energy that they could, using Kabbalistic magic. And just listen to what Oppenheimer says himself out of his own mouth, and maybe it'll be clear. Now, he was the head of the team, okay? And yes, Oppenheimer is a Jewish name.
He knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should.
Now, he's about to quote from a Hindu book, the Bhagavad Gita, also called the Brahman, and it's one of the oldest quote-unquote religious writings in the world. It depicts a battle in the heavens, one of the oldest depictions ever, and also it is said to depict the use of this explosion, the use of this explosive power. People used to say, see, in the ancient aliens deception, lie, game, hustle, they will say, oh, well, they had nuclear bombs. No, it's not that they had what we have, it's that we have what they had. They had a knowledge of how to open up these portals and let through certain destructive forces on their enemies. And that was what the Manhattan Project was really all about. Now I'll run the quote myself after he says it, but now listen as he gets off into, now this is the press conference, out of all the things he could have said, and he sheds a tear. Isn't he such a sensitive little man?
Do his duty, and to impress him, takes on his multi-armed form and says, now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. I suppose we all thought that one way or another. 5.
As well he should, because he had become one with that spirit of death, the multi-armed spirit as represented in the Hindu pantheon. And if you do remember the Newsweek cover they brought out with your man Barack Obama as God of all things in that same form, the people that do these things know what they mean, and they count on the fact that you don't. Here he is posed as this multi-armed manifestation that Oppenheimer was just talking about, that they all felt like when they created this destroyer of worlds. They felt like the destroyer of worlds. Now, in the Hindu pantheon, you have Kali. You get California, California love. And Kali is this representation here, also in this multi-armed form. And there's a song by Georgia Ann Muldrow called Kali Yuga. It's based on the Hindu conception of really chaos to order, destruction bringing life, or things having to be destroyed so other things can live. That whole principle, the life-death cycle, is encapsulated in the meaning of Kali Yuga. So, I think that's interesting. It's also interesting that in Kali, a lot of people do yoga, the Kali Yuga. But let's get back. So yes, protons, electrons, neutrons, and planets are living energies. These men knew this. They were using something beyond conventional science. Okay, the S1 committee of the Manhattan Project met at the Bohemian Grove in the chalet, and that's where the atom bomb was conceived, using alchemical atomic research, i.e. turning uranium to plutonium. Interesting, uranium and plutonium both have the names of planets within them, and we know from looking at the comparison between the Roman pantheon and the Greek pantheon that the planets were to represent these spirits. It is the Mother Gaia concept on overdrive. They realized and knew that those things that we think of as something you can land on and run around on and build houses on, they knew that those were beings. And they overstand that a lot of things are beings that we are taught to take for granted. We don't think of our hair as a living thing, or our nails. We do all manners of things to both of them, cover them with all sorts of deadly substances, and then expect for them to prosper. But let's continue. And yes, both uranium and plutonium, instrumental in alchemical atomic research, both named for planets. Even the word planet, plan ET. It's about the ET plan, the extraterrestrial plan. You had to have planets in order to have an extraterrestrial plan. Project Bluebeam is intimately and intricately interwoven into these things as well. Okay, now supposedly, they wanted to create a golem child, a hybrid child, and infuse this child, to bathe this child in this atomic energy. Atom, being, first being. Atom smasher. Something to destroy life. They had to change it. Well, they wanted to be an atom splicer. They said, well, can we split life up? Can we split atoms up into little pieces? No, they couldn't. No, excuse me. It went the other way around. They wanted to smash it first. They wanted to smash Adam. Of course they want to smash Adam. They're of their seed. They're of their father. So, yes, they wanted to smash Adam. They couldn't do it, so the most they figured that they could do was, they were trying to destroy energy. They would have figured out how can we destroy energy on an atomic level. Isn't that devilish? Why would you want to do that? They want to figure out how can we destroy the smallest form of energy that we can conceptualize. The basis of energy. Because people say, well, you can kill the body, but, so they said, we want to fix that. We want to get all the way to how can you smash every bit of energy? Couldn't do it. So, yes, these men are using what we consider and call technology and science and whatnot, the same way sorcerers and wizards use magic. So it's all semantics. What's in a name? The names change, but the game's the same. They're using magic. They've been using magic. They ease technology in on you because they have the very highest forms and levels of everything. Because the magic was taught to them long ago. So they already have these things. They nickel and dime you to death by trickling new products out and tell you it's a new technological advancement. In the medical field, in the entertainment field, field of everyday appliances, it doesn't matter. But they were supposedly trying to create this golem, this hybrid child, this child born, first of all, from the astral plane. In other words, this is supposed to be a child of a human and a non-human. You UFO fans and aficionados and pro-disclosure folks will say, well, they were trying to create an alien hybrid. Again, sometimes we get caught up on the semantics. You know, person don't want to say the word demon, but they'll say an extra-dimensional biological entity. You know, I mean, it is what it is. You know, maybe he don't call himself neither one of them. So both of us is wrong, but we both know what we're talking about. What's overstood and got to be explained. So they wanted to create this hybrid child as a ruler of Earth among them, mocking God, quote unquote. Why did the Most High gave dominion to His creation over all the things of Earth, right? So when did the devil become prince? After man gave him his authority, gave up his authority. When men give up their authority, the civilization is lost. And even among authorities and authors and learned men and scholars who appear to have authority in front of you because of how they dress and they wear ties and they drive foreign sedans, in reality, they are powerless too. They've given away all of their authority. They didn't have authority in the first place because there's only one way to have authority. But even the perception of authority that the spirits will give you at first, it will begin to wither away. This is something that men like Jack Parsons, Aleister Crowley, even Anton LaVey would only find out before it was, well, really, when it was too late. So we're talking about all of the scientists who came over here. Look at that group photo here. This is a lot of folks. We brought them over here. People say, well, why would you bring Nazis over here to the U.S.? They could possibly subvert. Some believe that's what happened. I believe it was more of a thing of they moved beyond nationalism and into globalism. They moved beyond as Germans versus Americans, as is us with power versus them who want our power. You know, the haves versus the have-nots. But the excuse was, we don't want any other country to nab up these brilliant scientists that Hitler had assembled. We don't know anything about their ethics, their moral code. Actually, we did. We knew that their moral code was moot, null and void, non-existent. Not a factor. And that's why we wanted them. Because word had came back of some of the strange experiments and some of the technological quote-unquote developments that Hitler had gained by taking the occult military complex to that other level. And that's what these men were supposed to do for the U.S. So they really are the beginning of the military occult complex. Jack Parsons was the extension. He was the new blood to take them from old school to new school to the next level. Okay. So supposedly, some say that the blast from the first atomic bomb irradiated a giant lead canister that was nicknamed Jumbo, that had an air of mystery behind it, and perhaps that would be a whole other video to look into Jumbo. But we understand what they were doing. They were dealing with necromancy, sex magic, and abominable acts, and mixing those together with Kabbalistic knowledge and physics, and they were doing their best to commune with the spirits that they believed originally taught mankind flight and seeded mankind, and they wanted to get access to these individuals' knowledge by any means necessary. It's always more a race for knowledge and power than it is for money. But so they used the demonic power of atomic fire. Men of science do have a religion, whether they are aware or not. It is alchemy. That's their religion. What some called magic in times past, we call science nowadays, in a variety of instances. Okay. Now it's interesting too that Jack Parsons had a apparently close relationship with his mother. Some will say he was even struck with somewhat of an Oedipus complex, almost an unhealthy love for his mother. But he reportedly told his mother a couple of years after the incident that his golem child that was inside of Jumbo did live, and that it was female. Okay, now this is, again, these things will not be, these won't be found in declassified papers from the Freedom of Information Act, my friends. Okay, but it's out there. You understand how to research. You know how to find these things. You know the names and numbers to look for, and the organizations and archives to deal with. Okay, now Cameron, that was the woman, the Scarlet woman whom he claimed that he had conjured. She played the roles of Kali and the Scarlet Woman in Kenneth Anger's film Inauguration of the Pleasure Dome. So again, we have Kali being mentioned alongside this talk of this god of destruction, this creation of a new weapon inspired by demons. Okay, these men of science and their involvement with the occult. You know, some of the words and code words and keywords involved there make me a little leery. Big ups to my brothers and sisters in California. They've been threatening and rumoring for so long, especially concerning the San Andreas fault. And when the video game company Rockstar Games, which we know from indicators, is into subliminals and mind control and hidden meanings and messages, they did the San Andreas game, you know, the hood quote unquote version of Grand Theft Auto. They called it San Andreas, and it just, you know, I don't know. We just pray for everybody on both coasts, my brothers and sisters in the Big Apple, of course, always, and everywhere where there's evidence of these demonic manifestations running rampant through society, creating more violence, chaos. You know, Chicago, you know, Philly, Georgia, all over. Hold your heads and pray to stop these workings, especially to stop this working, because this is the working that is oddly connected to rockets, explosions, and atomic bombs. Kali, destruction, great destruction. The mother, the whore of Babylon, all representative of the same mother goddess principle. This is why I get on my brothers and sisters trapped in the Kemet deception. Yes, they play games and they lie about the color of the Kemetians. I'm going to do a whole video on that. You're going to love it. We're going to have a lot of fun with it. But we're going to be done with it. Okay, some things that ain't been said need to be said. It's going to be said. And we're going to deal with those. Believe it. But they try to push everyone into some form of version of this virgin mother goddess worship. For Rome, it was Diana. For the Egyptians, it was Isis. Ain't no way around it. Semiramis for the Babylonians. Okay, you had these many different. You had Minerva. You had these many different depictions of this mother goddess, feminine representation of an energy. Okay, that adversary energy, the adversarial energy, the energy of evil, the devil. Call it a feminine personification of evil, the devil, whatsoever you want to call it. But revered by witches, because you can also put Lilith as one of those representations. Okay, but to really manifest her, you know, to really manifest this spirit, they believe that now is the time, and to cause for that spirit to reign is going to require blood and great destruction. And again, never ever in fear, because, you know, I used to hear it more often than I hear now, but I used to hear people saying, you know, if we do something on our end, you say, well, what can we do? You know, we don't have the arms to do it. No. If we do what we can spiritually, most of their work is done spiritually. Do you notice that? They do more spiritual work than they do any other type of work. They get off work and come home. Okay? Even the military guys, they get time off. The spiritual side of this is where there's always work that can be done if you put your hand to the plow. All right? And this is about now. It's relevant now. Let's go. Okay. Okay. And of course, we make all these relationships. Obama is the god of all things as Kali. Cameron playing the roles of Kali and the Scarlet Woman. So we see the relationship of them. And Kenneth Anger, who was a big Luciferian butt boy and supporter of Crowley and them. He did a movie called Inauguration of the Pleasure Dome, which is a artistic interpretation of a ritual. And then, of course, the Jewish Kabbalistic scientist Robert Oppenheimer even alluded to the Hindu demon Kali in the historic press conference that followed the detonation. And of course, Oppenheimer, as we saw, he headed the Manhattan Project scientists who pushed alchemy and Kabbalah magic to its limits to call forth the most destructive forces, i.e. of the destroyer, opposite of being creative and of the creator, detrimental to the prosperity of mankind, akin to creating another devil, creating another great destructive force. We already had one destructive force. He's called the devil. Hello? They wanted to make another one. Want to know an odd piece of trivia about those bombs? Did you know that, according to my information, stop me if I'm wrong, I'm no rocket scientist, but did you know that you can only detonate them at certain times and on certain days, which is oddly similar to in Conjuring. Even using baby breath books like the Goetian, you can only get certain things to occur or to come certain hours of the day, certain days. You get a better chance. So they definitely were using the rules of demonology. They were applying demonology principles to physics, which is a big word that don't mean nothing. What is physics of the flesh? Let's go. So they were creating another devil, using physics, trying to create something physical. A physical manifestation of a spiritual reality. But it was of the devil on another level. And interestingly enough, the blast, they called the bomb on their first blast, it was the Trinity atomic bomb blast. The Trinity atomic bomb blast. Again, this Scarlet woman is to be representative of an unholy Trinity. So it's a mockery of the quote-unquote Judeo-Christian Trinity, one way or another, no matter how you look at it. And like Oppenheimer said, this world will not be the same. And he should feel like death, the destroyer of worlds. So now we understand a little bit more about the bombs. We're going to look more into NASA, the UFO blue beam diversion, and how portals and rituals will all take place. The increasing of all of the rituals is for what? They're bringing in more demons, more aliens are coming to the scene, ladies and gentlemen. For what? Why? Why now? Is it time for the grand finale? So they need some of the key players to come and take their places on set. Did you know that the act of conducting war, or the war game itself, you know, they call it war games too, it's called the theater of war. So there's a show. Somebody plans a show. So it's all part of a plan that right now we're seeing the Babalon working, being conducted on four corners of the earth. Okay? People in power that belong to organizations such as the Ordo Templi Orientis and the Temple of Set, like Michael Aquino, is a person in power in our military. Did you know that? Never heard of him, have you? Michael Aquino. Look him up and put Temple of Set, because he don't hide it. He's been on Donahue or one of them shows, you know, popping his collar, sporting his religious freedom like a Rolex. Say, well, yes, it's a free country. I have the right to believe what I want to believe. And so the Temple of Set, low-key, won't, to outsiders, align themselves with the real thing, because it's part of the Egyptian deception. As Dr. York himself was a member of the Temple of Set, admittedly. And the Temple of Set, according to researchers such as former FBI head Ted Gunderson, is a known satanic pedophile ring. Talk to me. It's all up and through the government. That's what it's really about. They're not Christian. They're not Muslim. They are demonologists, Luciferians. Those who scoff at Lucifer, they believe in their demon. Yes, there's some of them that scoff at Lucifer. Of course there would be. It's some of them who believe that they can achieve that power of God. So bump Lucifer. That's right. And guess what? Old Lou, he'll take them too. Believe it. the Babalon, Ba and Ka, two important principles in Kemet. Ka, the spirit principle. Ba, the soul. Baal, the soul of Baal and An. Baal and An, Ion. And when there's an onion related to An, the ancient deity An. But you have two Babylonian Commission era deities. Babylon talk about the soul of Baal and An. Okay, which, like you can say, Detroit is the soul of Motown. Hello. So Babylon was the soul of these two entities. The place. Then you had the system. The place got so cold it created a whole system. Well, Motown Records ain't in Detroit no more. You got Hitsville sitting over there on Grand Boulevard. Look like a regular house if you're driving too fast and don't know it's there. But out there in California, you'll find Motown Records offices. Well, how was that so? Motown was a world system. It created a system of music, a system of making music, a style of music, a philosophy behind making music. Babylon was a place. Motown was a place. Babylon created a worldwide system, a system that changed the way things were done. Do you see the analogy? You do. Okay. Now, interestingly enough, also figuring into this whole equation, Scientologists and fans of such is L. Ron Hubbard. L. Ron Hubbard was the magical partner of Jack Parsons. Sometimes he would go by the name Frater H. Frater meaning brother. Brother H, Brother Hubbard. But L. Ron Hubbard was also very key in Jack Parsons' life at the time. So key that he ended up running away with Marjorie. And through a joint business venture that all three were supposed to be involved in, he tried to take all of Jack Parsons' DOE. Tried to take all of his dough and go. And Jack got a hold of the plot before it could get totally out of hand. Got some of his money back. The understanding is after a few years or after a little bit, Marjorie comes back to him. But let's look at some more very interesting things, okay? Okay, now John Whiteside Parsons' papers and books are by and large classified. There are some things that he wrote that can be found among his wife's treasured artistic offerings. There's a book in which Parsons wrote the poetry and Cameron did the painting. Songs for the Witch Woman. That's what they called it. What a couple. But yes, his papers and books are still classified. Jokingly, they called the JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, they called it Jack Parsons Lab because he was that influential. He was the man with the plan that could overstand. He was immortalized by having a crater named for him on the moon. It's not lightweight jamming, people. On the dark side of the moon at that. How do you get a crater named for you on the moon? You got to put it down. Interesting. He has a crater named for him on the lunar, and he spent the last part of his life dealing with lunacy, which is where you get lunacy comes from the word lunar, lunatic. It had to do with those who worship the moon being seen as crazy. It also had to do with the energy that the moon is said to bring out in people. You know, more admissions to the psych ward, and more car accidents, and more domestic violence incidents and whatnot. Women's cycles, the tides of the ocean, all these things are affected by the moon. So the pull of the moon. But we got all off into that. But yes, it is very interesting, his connection to the occult, and the moon and the lunar connection to crazy. And even Crowley would often warn in his books that one of the consequences to dealing with the magic was that you could lose your sanity. Your personality could become totally overtaken by that which you're trying to call to work for you. He would not make that a secret. Okay? But Parsons and others were so lustful for the experience. They just wanted the experience. Some of y'all just want to see something pop up out of a circle in the middle of a flow. Some of you do. Some of you got better sense than that. If you knew better, you'd do better. But let's continue. Okay. With so many students of science and aeronautics, rockets, and so many space enthusiasts, people that study NASA, people that study rockets and how they're made, people that have model rockets, it's puzzling to the average bear why more information isn't readily accessible concerning such an important American historical figure. Isn't that odd? This is someone you should be taught about in school. Like Crooks, the man that gave you the TV. Yeah, that man, you should know him. He should be a household name. I mean, you know, now things are a little different because, you know, the school system is supposed to make you a little slowish. But I remember growing up, I knew the basics. I knew Edison made the light bulb, Graham Bell made the phone. But if you'd have asked me who made the TV, I couldn't have told you. But it's because of the history of those men. You can look into Baird and you can look into Crooks, the two men who were behind the cathode ray tube and the development of the television in general, and you will find them connected to the Golden Dawn. Hello. You will find them connected to these secret societies, which was popping at this time. See, when you see 40s and 50s movies, you think about Ward Cleaver and stuff like that, man. Them dudes was live. There was a big spiritual movement at this time, as it was in the period of the 1800s. You know, that a lot of people aren't aware of. Seances and things that really blew up in the 1800s. It's where you get them old pictures of ectoplasms, spirits, demons coming in and out of people at seances in old black and white photos. Look like your great grandma photos. Them. Let's continue. So the main reason that scholars and historians will cite for so little official information or fervor over Jack Parsons is because of his association with Crowley. His association with Crowley was no secret. It was so known that it affected Parsons' own credibility and reputation. Okay, his association with Crowley could not be hidden, nor could the impact Crowley had on his life. So Crowley affected Parsons, and thusly the space program. Aleister Crowley was influential to the space program because he understood what outer space was all about. Outer space was all about inner space, the space between your ears, and about mind control, bringing these things through the force of will and mind. You know, Thelema Magick, you know, but through the force of will and mind. And he believed that you overcame any subversion of your will by doing what you will, by doing what you want to do. So that's the only way you can practice making your will strong. Just do whatever you want to do. Little did he know that this was just a formula that would allow for you to be the perfect breeding ground for a legion of spirits that would not leave easily. Now there are those who bring these things upon themselves, like these distinguished individuals that we're speaking of today. But the main reason that I came to say what I wanted to say was for the unsung and the unknown, the totally unknown, the victims of the rituals, the stars in the rituals. You know, you can be both. But that sounds strange. You can be a victim of the ritual and a star, because these maniacs can believe something about you or about your bloodline, who you descend from, or because of some pact or agreement that was made by someone in your bloodline. These maniacs say they got a right to you. And the difficult part is that by spiritual law, in a sense, they do. It's that contract thing again. Parents, if your child is offered a contract and they're under 18 and they engage in that contract, guess what? That contract is null and void. At least that's the way it used to be. Now they're trying to turn the children into idols so tough they might have relaxed this. But that's because you as a parent, you have the authority until that child can take legal authority. Some children are mature before others. But do you see the analogy? It's the same way in the spirit realm when a child is christened or given over, because of course christening would not be the proper term, but when a child is given over, dedicated, when a child is dedicated to these demon spirits, to these unclean things, okay, and then they secretly watch the child like the Truman Show and guide the child, send people in the child's life ever so often, steer it this way, steer it that way, all until the child reaches a certain age, so they can use them in this ritual. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what some of you are aware is going on. So I just ask you to turn it up. You know, yes, lots of problems, lots of beloved brothers and sisters in Christ who need deliverance, and lots of beloved family and friends of theirs. And so that's why we try to teach a form of self-deliverance and intercessory prayer, because it's times when you can't pray for yourself. But this is an extreme case, ladies and gentlemen. This ain't lightweight jamming. We say we heavyweight jamming. You know, I didn't know how heavyweight we were jamming, folks. Let's continue. Okay, Crowley selected Parsons as his successor, as we said, in the OTO, and his agent in Pasadena. He was private in nature, unlike Crowley, who liked to be known in the media and whatnot as the beast and the Antichrist. And although Parsons was private in nature, unlike Crowley, the demons that guided Parsons would eventually inflate his ego and cause him to make certain slips and to cause him to dry snitch and slick side admit, alongside the inevitable dominance of light over dark. These things, and that's how they've come to our attention. You know, I didn't go looking for this mystery. This was not a mystery that was really on my radar like that. You know, I like to know anything interesting, but it fell in my lap because of the importance of it, and also because it can be affected. It wouldn't fall in my lap if it couldn't be affected. Okay, so you know, there's lots of them. They're spread apart. They're all over, and they're dedicated, and they're constantly praying for what they want to be made manifest. They're constantly contacting what they believe in to manifest how they want the world to be. When is the last time you contacted who you believe in and let them really get a good understanding about how you want this world to be? You have not because you ask not. We sit and we complain. We let the news, my old used to call it the bad news. Put the bad news on. We let the news take us down through there to where we begin to vibrate in these dark ways. That they're doing rituals to make other people vibrate in. You begin to voluntarily give up your joy. Joy, don't let the devil steal your joy. The joy of the Lord is your strength. Let's continue. Somebody having a fit. They face tight as Tupperware. Mercy. All right. L. Ron Hubbard. In August 1945, he met and conducted rites with L. Ron Hubbard, a writer at and they got together at Palomar, which was a place that they believed was a great sexual power center. Remember, a key to Parsons' wizardry or magic was the sex magic. He was quite a freak. It was said in letters back and forth between he and other OTO members and Crowley and them concerning him, because Crowley would have people watch you. He encouraged for everybody to snitch on each other so he could keep abreast of what's going on while he's over in England. But according to other members, he would only write sensuous poetry. He was really into sensuality and was at least a homosexual, according to one woman's report back to Crowley. So him and L. Ron Hubbard is engaging in one another in sex magic rituals. Scientology, Tom Cruise, Travolta. They don't seem a little Swedish for me. I mean, to me they do. But that's, most actors that I see, even when they try to act tough, it's just something. But it's just, they all do the same thing. So a tough act shouldn't convince you. But yeah, L. Ron Hubbard, founder of Scientology, was said to be a great confidence man or con man. Okay, he and his then friend L. Ron Hubbard embarked on a tear of workings together, many of them homosexual in nature. Parsons shares intimate magic secrets learned from Crowley with L. Ron Hubbard. Hubbard snatches Marjorie Cameron, Parsons' woman, and he snatches Parsons' secrets, and he snatches Parsons' money and almost gets away. We mentioned that. Okay, now some say, this I thought was interesting, some say that Scientology and naval intelligence have a secret connection. There have been researchers who've done great work on that. There's a woman, sister in the struggle, I forget her name, but this woman, she does a good connection piece, or good research piece connecting the two. But let's just say this: L. Ron Hubbard had served in the Navy, and so did Marjorie Cameron. Marjorie Cameron wasn't just a lightweight jamming in the Navy neither. Let me tell you something about her. She was she worked for the Joint Chiefs of Staff there. Okay, let's knock old L. Ron out the box. You ain't got to see L. Ron, right? You've seen him before. You know what he looks like. Okay. So Hubbard, in the end, after all the smoke cleared, Parsons threatened to sue him, or did sue him, and got some of the money back. Hubbard says, Hubbard claimed to be working with naval intelligence to quote-unquote spy on these dangerous witches within our institutions. And he also claimed to be Crowley's successor in occult circles, not Parsons. So he slandered the man. He came out, said he was working for the alphabet, slandered the man, and now he's the biggest thing since Pockets. Parsons is obscure, and Scientology runs Hollywood. Can you make it up? Babylon means gateway to the false gods working. Started in order to create this child, to create this moon child is what Crowley called it. Now, in response to bad experiences, Crowley kicks Parsons out of the order. Crowley really was a bit jealous, it seemed, of Parsons. You know, he was the new school, he was the new jack. And Crowley was old and played, and Parsons was bringing some new things to the table. From their perspective, he was innovative, creative, coming up with new stuff, and had created this Babylon working. And Crowley was very curious as to what exactly it was in detail, and Parsons would not tell him in detail because he said of the spiritual secrecy. You know, he cited some occultic motto or reason, and of course Crowley didn't buy it. Okay, so he kicks Parsons out of the order. Parsons continues to do magic on his own. He wanted to balance off, he said, the conscious energies of mankind by way of the spirit of the whore of Babylon, and through sex, magic, and alchemy. So Parsons, like many of them, believes he has good intention. The road to hell is paved with, you have to have more than good intention. Okay. Oftentimes you've seen it in the movie, the madman, bad guy, villain, he has a good intention. Sometimes you've seen that. Oh, well, this is to stop all of the corporate American stuff that you got, but he really wants some money, so they make it seem like people that claim to have good intentions, they really just want money. But anyway, Parsons was misled, and the Lord allowed for him, of course, to be under a strong delusion. Those demon spirits put a whoop on your mind like never before. Everything that happens to him, he is now equating to his experiences or thinking that it has some occultic meaning. Okay, and this is where madness can generate from, when people do that. And it's a fine line, because every instance, everything that happens has meaning. This is true. But it's about how impactful the meaning is, and how much importance you put on finding out what the meaning is. That's the difference. Usually the meaning will fall in your lap if it's not that serious as lightweight jamming. Okay, but what OCD will do, which is a form of oppression, those things will kick in and kick your chin. And you will look at everything, every instance, billboards, license plates. You'll see things on the clock all the time. Not that these things never occur. That's why I say it's a thin line. It's about the obsession with it. Okay, I hope you keep your house clean, or fix your hair. There are people who are obsessive with that. You understand? That's the difference. We're talking about obsession. And so obsession, of course, follows depression. So after he was depressed. His woman got stole. His buddy, magic partner, took his money. He gets kicked out of his position, not just with Crowley, but also with the laboratories. His reputation is getting a bit out of hand. He's being investigated by the FBI. Interesting. At the time, you still had some square pegs. You still had some people who wasn't in on everything that goes on. Remember, this is the 40s. So they take his top secret clearance, which for a man of his status and occupation, was very debilitating. Okay, now, also in a vision, Jack Parsons was shown a sacred geometrical symbol, the tetrahedron, encircled tetrahedron, which is the basis or foundation of integral to hyperdimensional physics. And he began to explore in this direction. Records of his death sealed. Okay, as we said, times of launchings, times of landings, and detonations of A, H, and nuke bombs must align with certain days and times in accordance with their keeping of astrotheology and alchemy. So what they've done is they've figured out a way to mechanically generate this destruction, then to encapsulate it. You've heard of a genie in a bottle, Christina. Well, they've trapped it not in a bottle, but in a canister, in a rocket. And its energy, it's explosive, destructive, anti-human energy. Let's continue. Any sufficient advance in technology is indistinguishable from magic. Think about the Bible code technology. There's studies of individuals who have used the Bible code, or who have taken the Hebrew language or taken the Hebrew translation of the Bible, strung out all of the letters without any spaces in between the letters, like you see a crossword puzzle. And when you look at that grid of letters, whether you look at it diagonally, forward, backward, you will find historical events encoded down to specifics in the Bible code. And again, there are always people who come out to debunk anything that causes you to see the spiritual reality in front of you. Don't think I don't know that. It's what kept me blind to it for years. No matter what community you come out of, you know, you come out of the gods and earth, they tell you, well, you know, that's spookism. Ain't no spirits. Well, I'd like for you to explain what this is that's opening up this door every night. So, again, there's a lot of forces at work to keep you from seeing this part of what is truly reality. Those of y'all that be stuck up on, well, you know, where's the paperwork? I gave you a lot of things to look up, a lot of names and key things that you can look up, pictures to show you that I don't just sit up and roll the camera and make up stuff. Okay? But at the same time, too, you cannot expect for these secret and hidden and occult things to be emblazoned across the front of the New York Times. You got to dig. Seek and ye shall find. And you have to have a little bit of game about yourself. It is a gameless, goofy goober who will sit up and say, well, until you can show me paperwork of, you know, this, that, and the third, or upskirt of Obama's, you know, I don't believe you. Well, you know, you don't have to. You're going about your business, go on here with your bad self. Speed on before you get beat on. But this is my forum where I'm showing you the things that are revealed to me from my understanding, from my study, from my experience. And, you know, that's what it's going to be. But some quotes from Starfire magazine, a Thelemic Crowley publication, from Jake Parsons himself as we close. But I say that perfect image of the heart of man is patterned by the awful lust in space-time that shapes all women, the insatiable and eternal lust of Pan, that is Babylon. That is from Jack. Parsons. Where did they put his crater? About JWP, this is a quote from Crowley. All that I can say is that I'm very sorry. I feel sure that he had fine ideas, but he was led astray. Firstly by Smith, who was the old head of the OTO, where Crowley moved Parsons into that position. Smith was there prior to Parsons, and Smith and Parsons had a good relationship. But he said he was led astray firstly by Smith. Then he was robbed of his last penny by a confidence man named Hubbard. Aleister Crowley calling L. Ron Hubbard a con man. I have no further interest in Jack and his adventures. He is just a weak-minded fool and must go to the devil in his own way. Unquote. Now, just a few more things about Cameron, because again, she is the whether she was naval intelligence and was sent in there or not, her and Jack are both victims on a certain level, but she was the victim, and ancestry is under attack by the enemy all the time. But there's ancestral demons on different levels, and the things that she involved her life in and what she got wrapped up in dealing with this man here and his colleagues would forever not only affect her life, it would affect all of our lives, and it would eventually affect all the lives of her descendants. And this is an actual fact, because she was the original woman used in the Babylon working. And yes, she had a legendary, although not financially prosperous per se, but critically prosperous, critically acclaimed career as an artist. She appeared in a couple of films, one film with Dennis Hopper, and then of course there were lots of amateur artists in the beat scene at that time out in California trying to make a way for themselves, and she was tight with quite a few of them. She was tight with another one named Kenneth Anger, who was known among the Luciferian circles as a little grub of a man, but he made these weird films, and she would participate in them because she was all for pushing the boundaries of art. But let's look just a little bit more into her, because it's interesting. One of the first MK Ultra operatives of all time, one of the first women used for mind control spying programmed by men, was Candy Jones, and she was used during the wartime. She was married to Neville Jones, who was a talk show host. Well, interestingly enough, Jack Parsons renamed Marjorie Cameron, who only would go by her name Cameron. She didn't like the name Marjorie, but he renamed her for magic ceremonies. He gave her a magic name, and her name was Candida. Is that what Gomez is saying to Morticia? That's some really weird stuff to it. If you really take a look at what the Addams family is representing, is a family of people like these type of folks. Throw it off. They're not right, and they can get right. They can, if we pray for them. Some of y'all will be moved to do that. Pray for them too. Pray for them too. Abusers usually were victims. Okay, and she claimed that she had this child, but she didn't. Both the child that everyone knows that she had, and then both this mystery child. You can imagine her point of views on raising a child was awful messed up. So people that knew her and knew her human child that everybody knew was said that she let the child do anything. The girl even said herself, her name was Crystal. She even said herself how, you know, her mother didn't give her no supervision. She did whatever she wanted to do. Okay, and this was part of the Crowley dilemma, do as thou wilt. So she was raising up her child in her belief. Do what you want to do. The child wanted to drop acid with her mother at 9. She told her it was fine. Do as thou want to do. And of course, resulting from that to this day, that young woman has some unique challenges, certainly. But, you know, that bloodline. Okay. Let's see. All right, now, during the period of January 19th, that's tomorrow, as of this taping, during the period of January 19th to February 27th, 1946, I invoked the goddess Babylon with the aid of magical partner Ron Hubbard, as was proper to my grade, Jack Parsons wrote. So from January 19th to February 27th, intense prayer watch against ceremonies, rituals, ancestral demons, against the Babalon working, against the spirits of Pan, against the spirits of lunacy, against the spirits of witchcraft, rebellion and sorcery, and anything else that is given to you to pray. But from the 19th to the 27th, we want to go hard in a very special way. Okay, because it could mean a lot to people all over the world if we can disrupt the energies of the working, stop the working mid-progress, call down angels to go and interrupt the working. Where two or more are gathered, and he's not a man that he should lie. All right. The article said, of course, talking about the woman who just appeared. The article says the woman is Marjorie Cameron. She came by magical manipulation of events. Didn't just pop up. Like the Adjustment Bureau, how those spirits adjust events. They have technology and everything. Y'all can look at that. Adjustment Bureau. I'm not going to give out no more horror movies unless you're a special student. But I don't do that no more because it's just too dangerous. I read something that Crowley said concerning Jack Parsons when Crowley was getting a little tired of him. They were talking about Parsons' personality and how he was a little aloof. You know, he liked adventure stories and sci-fi and horror books. And Crowley made a remark in his letter. It was an aside. It wasn't deep and heavy, but it came from Crowley himself. He said, Yes, we've got to get him to stop being so easily distracted by all of that drivel, you know, paraphrasing at this point. But, and especially those horror novels, he would never mess with them again if he really knew how they came to be. That stuck out. Because it mirrors what you've heard ministers say for years concerning that stuff. That was heavy. Crowley said that. You know, that's like when you hear the LaVeys say that they don't watch TV, you know, or you know, different ones say they don't let their children watch TV. They don't let them eat at McDonald's. They don't let them do stuff you let yours do. Hello. Okay. Bind up the power of the Scarlet Woman. The demon of the Scarlet Woman. Bind up any demons summoned from the Mojave Desert. While he was there, Parsons received 77, and you know the importance of them, of 77 to Crowley. Okay, and I've done a number of videos on that. I'm the only man put together 7779311 and Flight 77, Flight 93, and Flight 11 because of my unique background. Let's continue. The average researcher don't know the song, so how would they ever make the connection? You got to be from the hood to even make that connection, right? Hey, just a guy from Detroit. Okay, so he received 77 verses where he says, the presence of the goddess came upon him and inspired him to write them in the occult legendary book Liber 49. That's a writing by Jack Parsons. It exists. Okay, so, prove he existed. He wrote of the occult. He was into the occult. He is the most important figure connected to jet propulsion laboratory in its history. Okay, and block and bind up any rituals of Horus and any invocations or evocations of ancient Egyptian spirits who are not our ancestors. They lied to them. Don't nobody in my family look like a hawk. Have mercy. Y'all believe anything. X-Clan was deceived. I said it. X-Clan, vainglorious. X-Clan was deceived, and they helped to push me into that deception. We was deceived in the most honest way you can get deceived. You want to know something about yourself. Okay? You feel like you're getting tricked by somebody else. And your own kind is waiting for your behind. When you finally change your frame of mind and say, well, wait a minute, I want what's mine. And you go to your own people to get it. And they got their fingers crossed behind their back the whole time they're talking to you. And they arm in arm with somebody of some other nationality don't care nothing about what's going on in yarn. Okay? So it's a trick bag to it. You will know about yourself. Go back there in your grandma's room and go look on her chest of drawers, on her dresser, and get that book. Take it with you. Take a look on your own. No white Jesus. That's a line that they feed. It's a mind control line. A COINTELPRO designed mind control line. It's supposed to be a foolproof line to trigger the black man's mind into denying the Messiah. Don't mess with me today. That's what that line is for. Now, if you got your Mayweather on, you know the counterpunch. You know how to throw your shoulder and slip that, right? I know what color he was. Now let's get into his existence. Let's get into that history and how it connects to me and mine. Because nobody wants you to do that. Because there's some power in that. I know some brothers and sisters have been studying Kemet, man, since X-Clan. And they look like they've been X'd out. It ain't working. Who got the blueprint? How you do it? How you do it right? Where's that? It's Boule all the way, baby. Remember the time. They put that on all the stars entertainers' mind. Don't you never connect yourself to Samson or King David or Solomon. Don't you never connect yourself to Joshua or Moses. Don't do that. You connect yourself to Ra'un Nefertiti, Amen Cook. And read their story. And do like they did. You see. And when you read their story, when you read the story of Tahuti, and you get ready to do what he did, you end up put off into a trick bag. And that's what them brothers know. They stand up there with them doctorates and whatnot and, you know, funnel us at their master's beckoning and command into a bondage land instead of a promised land. Some of y'all understand what I'm saying. So you block them rituals of invocations of these different Egyptian deities. They really want us to get off into it now. See, they need us to get off into it now. Some things have to be done. This race game, this black and white chessboard dynamic, has an end game and an objective to be won. It's not quite there until you have all of black America dressing in a new age version, a new style, new school version of how the Egyptians dressed and looked. It's getting close. It's going to start the video. The videos is already, they've been pushing that since so contagious. Dr. Dre and Homeboy, it was with him. Yeah, that's right. They've been doing it. They've been parading men in dresses in front of you. See if they can slip it to you this way, slip it to you that way, before they brought out the grand finale whammy. The baffle mammy. That's right. She don't deserve no respect, him nor her. Especially not him. He perpetrating a fraud as bad as she is, as bad as he is. He perpetrating a fraud like he's a nationality that he ain't, just to get us on his team. He's not no Negro like I'm a Negro. It's Indonesian. And last time I checked, the Indonesian person don't want to be put in the same class and boat as me. They still dealing with the caste system and whatnot. You know, the darker Indonesians is catching it worse, just like in India. Darker Asiatics catch it worse. So no, he don't want to lump himself in there with that. That's why they had to throw Jay-Z at him, and my president is black. They had to do all of this to get that in your mind. Get that in your mind right. They programmed us. They set us up, behavior modification. So yes, that was today's lesson, and we ended on a note we're going to begin on for the next lesson. We're going to look at the Egyptian deception again in greater depth. We're going to look into its importance to New Age in general, and we're going to look into its importance to my community in these last days and times, where they are pushing this Aquarian Age, this New Egypt style, and where many of our entertainers have already been indoctrinated into the Egyptian mystery system and want to indoctrinate me and you as well, all at the cost of disposing of the scripture that really hides the history that you've been seeking, my brother and my sister. So with that being said, it's been enough said. Have mercy. Closing notes. Some of these things were gleaned from information from Richard C. Hoagland, who is a great researcher. There's a lot of information, but he's pushing the disclosure deception, and that's dubious to me. But I got some information from here. But everything was found on YouTube. You can find more information about this on YouTube than you would expect. And even the Wikipedia entry on the Babylon working is a lot more informative than you may expect as well. It's also interesting to note, we said the devil don't have new tricks. He do the same old two-step, Okay? It's interesting to note that this relationship between Parsons and Hubbard's mirrored a relationship, that of John D. and Kelly. It really paralleled that relationship from 1659. Well, it's recounted, that relationship between John D. and Kelly. John D. was Queen Elizabeth's official wizard. And he wrote many things. He was like a Crowley of his time, for lack of a better word. Meaning he was supposed to be an authentic magician. So much so he worked for Queen Elizabeth. And in 1659, a book was written about John D. and Kelly's mishaps and their relationship, called A True and Faithful Relation of What Passed for Many Years Between Dr. John Dee and Some Spirits. So there you have a royal family member, the matriarch, the queen, has an official magician who spoke to the spirits. This thing goes way back, ladies and gentlemen. In 1948, Parsons lost his security clearance and things went downhill from there. He got ready to move to Mexico with Cameron, who had come back to him from the Hubbard incident. At this time, Jack was only living in his garage. He had turned his garage basically into a laboratory. What does he do? He's a rocket scientist, so rockets need what? Jet fuel. So what they say is, while Marjorie went to the stove, because the first couple of times I heard the story, I was like, well, so what happened to Marjorie? Did she blow up too? What they say is, while Marjorie went to go get groceries for their Mexico trip, remember they live in California, Mexico ain't nowhere to them, like Toronto to us Detroiters. But while she was gone, they say this renowned expert at explosives dropped some explosives, blew himself and his house up. And that was the end of Jack Parsons. But not the end of his legacy. It continues on because the agents of the adversary continue to expand and study on what was done before them by pioneers, by people that they consider pioneers and forefathers, like Jack Parsons. Okay, we can't even do that for music. People don't even want to look into the old school music and see what it was the forefathers was doing. You know, we don't do that certainly as a body. You know, you get to mentioning Win Worley or some of the other legends. You know, Azusa Street, different things of that nature. You get to talking about that history. You know, nobody wants to hold on to history, and what it does is it gives us a microwave society, a Trinity society that don't last for 5 minutes. You don't remember what the big hot song was this time last year, do you? I know you don't, because we are moving along to where they want us, to where history is a mystery and you don't care. Look at Idiocracy, the movie, by the guys that did the Beavis and Butthead series. It depicts a future where mankind gets dumber and dumber and dumber and dumber and dumber. Okay, and it's a comedy, but it's funny how they did it and inserted so much commentary on where we're at today. So yeah, in 48, he lost his security clearance. Another interesting note I had, in 1969, the Sunday Times newspaper published an article that said, "The founder of Scientology involved in black magic," in which they recounted details of the Babylon working in this article. The article was based on details gleaned from the Gerald York collection, York Rite, Scottish Rite, at the Warburg, City of War Institute, to which reporters had gained access. Now, after the story came out, Hubbard didn't take it lying down. He threatened libel. York withdrew the papers related to the working. Now they are returned. They're back in the York collection at the Warburg Institute. But guess what? They're under a 25-year seal. You have to wait 25 years for those papers to be revealed. The Church of Scientology's statement concerning this matter in this article: Hubbard had been sent in as an FBI agent to break up a black magic group which included prominent scientists. And according to Hubbard, he was also sent to rescue Marjorie. foot got entangled with this seedy group of individuals. And I believe that's it. So now we see the Jack Parsons effect today. Okay, we understand the connections between the atomic bomb and the Babylon working. Okay, or great destruction coming and the Babylon working being performed at the same dang time. And that will be today's presentation. I thank you all for your time and your patience. We will return and we're going to look at some things that I've been asked to look at before, but I just really didn't feel like there was any new way I could frame the conversation. But now I see it now. So thanks again, y'all. Much love to you, peace and blessings, and I ask in the authority of the name of Jesus Christ, who is my Lord, my King of Kings, and my Savior. Heavenly Father, that you bind the blood of Jesus to this teaching, and that you bind the blood of Jesus to all who listen, and that you continue to open their eyes, Heavenly Father, and set them free, make them free, as it is written, that we shall know the truth, and it shall do just that. So we ask that you continue to give us strength and endurance to fight the good fight of faith, no matter where the events of the year may take us, and protect us against the prince of the power of the air. Let this message be received free and clear of any disruption, any hindrance, and any retaliation from the enemy in any way, shape, or form. And I stand upon your word, and I ask in the authority of the name of Jesus that you bind the blood of Jesus to this prayer, that it be sent out by Isaiah 55:11, which says that your word cannot return unto you as void, and by Matthew 18:18, Matthew 18:19, Matthew 18:20, and Matthew 21:22. I know that this prayer will do exactly what it's been set out to do. And we thank you and we love you. In the authority of the name of Jesus, we have decreed it. We believe it. We touch in agreement. So in the authority of the name of Jesus, we do receive it. Amen.